Hello, Virgo. Age is a number, love is not. That sounds like a bumper sticker, and I am going to ask you to sit with it anyway because underneath the simplicity of it is something genuinely true that deserves more than dismissal. The number of years between two people is a fact. It is measurable. It can be written down. It does not change. Love is none of those things. Love is not measurable, cannot be written down accurately, changes constantly in the specific, deepening, becoming more itself way of something alive. These two things, the fixed fact of the number and the living reality of the feeling, are not in the same category, and yet we treat them as though they belong on the same scale, as though the number can weigh against the feeling and potentially win, as though years can be placed on one side of a balance and love on the other, and the scale can tell us something useful. It cannot, the scale does not work that way. The number and the feeling are incommensurable. They cannot be meaningfully compared because they are not measuring the same thing. What these cards are showing me today is a love that has already tried the scale and found it wanting, that has placed the gap on one side and the feeling on the other, and discovered through the lived daily this is what is actually true experience of being in the connection rather than analyzing it from outside, that the feeling is simply not reducible to a number. That the number, however large, however apparently significant, does not have the weight that logic said it should have. And that discovery, the specific, I thought this would matter more than it does quality, of encountering the gap in reality rather than in theory, is what has produced the beyond human understanding quality that the title describes. Drop the word beyond in the comments and subscribe to this channel, because what is beyond human understanding is not magic. It is the specific, lived, cannot be argued with experience of something that defies the categories you brought to it. Let me talk about the gap honestly, because honesty about it is more useful than either dismissing it or romanticizing it. The gap is real. It is not nothing. The years between two people represent different relationships with time, with mortality, with the specific urgency or patience that different life stages produce. They represent different cultural reference points, different physical realities, different relationships with what comes next. These are not trivial differences. They are genuine and they require genuine navigation. The people on the outside looking in, the friends, the family, the social context, will have opinions. They will apply the scale. They will place the number on one side and look at you expectantly as though you are supposed to arrive at the conclusion the number seems to demand. Some of them will be concerned, some will be disapproving. Some will simply be confused by something that does not fit the pattern they expected. All of that is real too, and it is part of what this connection requires its participants to navigate with more intentionality and more clarity than same-age connections require. I am naming all of this not to discourage, to acknowledge, because a love that goes beyond human understanding is not a love that ignores the human realities. It is a love that has looked at the human realities directly and found that something persists through the looking, that the connection survives the honest examination of everything that could complicate it. Has this love been honestly examined? That is the question worth sitting with. What does beyond human understanding actually mean in practice? not as a romantic phrase, as a description of something specific. It means the experience of the connection does not match the prediction. That the people who said the age gap would produce particular dynamics or particular difficulties or particular limitations found that the particular dynamics they predicted did not arrive or arrived differently than expected, or were navigated in ways that the outside view did not anticipate. It means that being in the connection produces a quality of experience that the analysis of the connection from outside it did not predict, that the felt reality is not what the theoretical reality said it would be. This happens not because love is magic or because the universe makes exceptions to its own rules for certain connections, because human beings are genuinely more complex than the categories we use to organize them. Because a number does not determine the full reality of a person or a connection. Because what two specific people bring to each other in a specific combination sometimes produces something that the general rule did not account for. The general rule is built from the average of many cases. Your case is not the average. No case is the average from the inside. What I am seeing in the energy of this specific connection, and I want to be as honest and as grounded as I have been throughout this reading, is genuine. Something real is present between these two people. Not the convenient, comfortable, nobody would blink kind of real. The harder, more complex, requires more intentionality kind. The love is real, the gap is real. Both things are simultaneously true, and both things require ongoing, honest. This is what we are actually dealing with engagement, rather than the romantic bypass of pretending the gap is not there, or the cynical bypass of pretending the love is not there. The cards are not showing me a fairy tale. They are showing me two people who have found something genuine in a configuration that the world around them does not easily accommodate. And the question that matters is not whether the love is real, it is, but whether both people have the specific, practical. We are going to actually navigate this clarity and commitment to build something real from it. Real love requires real navigation. The beyond human understanding quality is not permission to skip the navigation. It is a description of what makes the navigation worth doing. Let me speak to both people in this connection because both matter. The older person, you have something to offer that is specific to where you are in your life, the depth that comes from having lived more, the groundedness, the specific settled quality of someone who has arrived at themselves through the particular education of time and experience. That offering is real and it is valuable and it is part of what makes this connection what it is. What you are asked to bring alongside it is honesty about your own needs, about what you want in the longer chapter of your life, about whether what you want and what this connection offers are genuinely aligned rather than aligned in the way that feels good right now. And Virgo's tendency toward thorough analysis serves you here. Use it honestly rather than in service of confirmation of what you already hope is true. The younger person. You bring aliveness, the specific quality of someone whose relationship with the future has a different texture because the future is longer. The enthusiasm of someone who has not yet been worn down by accumulating disappointment. The particular quality of seeing with eyes that have not seen everything yet, and who therefore still find the world genuinely surprising. What you are asked to bring alongside it is seriousness. The willingness to engage with the full complexity of what this connection requires rather than the romantic version that exists before the complexity has been fully encountered. The genuine, I have thought about this honestly commitment rather than the feeling driven certainty that has not yet been tested by time. Together, if both people are bringing both things, the combination is extraordinary. The depth and the aliveness, the groundedness and the enthusiasm, the settled and the still becoming. That combination does genuinely produce something that connections within the same age do not produce in the same form. What does the beyond human understanding quality produce practically? What does daily life look like when this love is expressed in its full, honest, both people genuinely engaged form? It looks like learning both directions, constantly the specific, I understand something now that I did not understand before quality of two people who genuinely teach each other through the simple act of being different enough that their perspectives do not simply confirm each other. It looks like the specific, I did not see that coming quality of being surprised by another person, of encountering a response or a perspective or a quality of seeing that your own experience did not produce and could not have produced, and that expands what is available to you simply through the encounter. It looks like patience in both directions, not the patience of tolerating something difficult, the active, generous, I understand that we are in different places with this patience of two people who respect each other enough to hold space for different timelines and different relationships with urgency and different ways of experiencing the same moment. And it looks like the specific, ongoing, this is what we have chosen quality of two people who have looked at the gap and looked at the love and made a decision that is renewed rather than simply maintained, who are not together by default or inertia, but by active, ongoing, this is still what I want choice. That choosing, renewed, deliberate, made with full awareness of the complexity is what the beyond human understanding love actually requires to sustain itself. One thing before we close, something I want to say plainly without ornamentation. The love that goes beyond human understanding is not exempt from human responsibility. The gap does not disappear because the feeling is real. The navigation does not become unnecessary because the connection is genuine. The people who will have opinions do not become irrelevant simply because their opinions are uncomfortable. What the depth of the feeling does is make the navigation worth doing, make the complexity worth engaging with, make the discomfort of the outside world's opinion worth tolerating. Not because love conquers all in the way that phrase is usually meant, because something real is worth the real effort it requires. This love is worth the real effort it requires. These cards are showing me something genuine, something that has survived the honest examination of what it is and what it asks, and has come through that examination still standing and still growing and still more real than the number that sits between the two people in it. The gap is huge. The love is larger. Not because the gap does not exist, because what the two people have found in each other has a quality that exceeds what the gap can measure. That is the beyond. That is the beyond human understanding, not magic. The specific, lived, this is what is actually true reality of something that the outside view's categories cannot contain. Live it honestly, navigate it deliberately, choose it actively. That is how love this real becomes, love this lasting. Tell me in the comments, what has the navigation actually looked like for you? Not the romantic version, the real one. Drop beyond if this reading found you somewhere honest today. Tell me what the gap has required of both of you that you did not anticipate. Tell me what the connection has given you that you did not expect. Because the real story is always more interesting than the version where love simply conquers all without requiring anything in return. With everything, I will see you in the next one.